Hi everybody, it's crazy, it's Monday, and it's time for the UPBGE video of the week. Now before I get started, gotta give a shout out to my trusted, because you guys rock, to my crazy fam, I love you guys. Now, we're up to episode number 81, and last week we ended on image sampling panel, which is on page 22. And if I switch over to here, I'm just using the same file I've been using, which is GLSL 1-1. It's just so you can see some of the stuff that we do. We were on texture, and what it's talking about is it's not generated, it's a picture or movie. So we would go here and we'd type, what's it at? Yeah, image or movie, and what it's talking about is this area right here, the image sampling panel. Okay, so I'm going to continue on from right there, and let's get started. The image sampling panel contains some of the options that change how the image is interpreted inside Blender. Okay, so let me see. Calculate alpha and normal map. Okay, so this got show alpha. There goes image sampling. Okay, we got normal map. Okay, and this is derivative map, which is something that is not it doesn't calculate alphas anymore, I guess. So I'm just gonna read it anyway. Calculate alpha ignores the real alpha channel from the image file and instead calculates the alpha channel from the intensity of the image. This treats black pixels as transparent and white pixels as opaque. So if you I believe if you put show alpha, it does about the same, but it's no longer in image sampling anymore. Okay, normal map, which is this one right here, okay, tells Blender to treat the image as a normal map so that the RGB value, red, green, blue value, is interpreted as surface normal, which can be mapped to the normal channel of the material to create bumpiness on the surface. Okay, so if you click normal map, you also have some ones you can do. You can do tangent, object, world, or camera. Okay, now onto the mapping panel, which is right below it, which is this one right here. Let's go ahead and close all these up because we're not using them right now. Okay, so mapping controls how 2D texture is mapped onto a 3D object. Available options include global, object, generated, UV, reflection, and normal. That's all these right here. Okay, there's actually some more. There's stress, and there's window, there's strained, particle, and there's object and global. And I don't think that those were on. And no, object was and global was. Okay, so they got global, object, generated, UV, reflection, and normal map, which is normal. Okay, so stress, tangent, and window and strained or strand isn't on there. Okay. Let's see. The default option generated might work in some very simple cases. So generated, is what it defaults to. Okay. But most of the time, you will need to use the UV image editor to control exactly how the image is projected onto the object. Using the UV image editor is covered in chapter 2. When the UV, and it was covered in chapter 2, believe it or not. If you don't know, check up here somewhere. I'll put chapter 2 up there somewhere to where you can go right to it. Okay. When the UV mapping is selected, you can specify which UV channel to use. If there is more than one UV layout for the mesh. Okay. So when UV mapping is selected, you can specify which UV channel to use if there is one more or more than one UV layout per mesh. So, so if you put it on UV, okay, then you can go to the map of that. Okay, that's what the UV is for. Okay, so you can, if you have more than one UV map, then you can use this. Okay, offset, which is this right here, translate the texture coordinates. So you can move the coordinates of each direction. So you can change it off of the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. Size changes the scale of the texture coordinates. So this changes the location, this changes the scale. Okay? And then it's got rotation here in degrees, which they do not cover because of the fact that a lot of people don't use that rotation. They don't need to rotate. So you got, move, scale, and rotate if you want to do that. Okay. Next one, they didn't cover parallax in this. Parallax is a completely different animal. It's a good one to work with. I'm not going to say too much on it. I'll probably one day come up with, this one, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. But you will get into that more the more you get into textures and materials. Okay? Influence. This panel controls how the value of the texture is actually applied onto the surface. By default, color is selected with the influence set to 1. Okay, so in other words, color is always selected. Even when you first create one, it's automatically going to do the color. There's some things you can do, like if you're doing a normal map, you're going to uncheck this because you don't want the color to shine through. Okay? See, this means that the texture completely replaces the diffuse color of the material. A setting of 0 means that there is no influence, effectively disabling the texture channel. Any in-between number will blend the current texture with the layer preceding it. Okay, so if you have several colors or several different bump maps and stuff like that, and you want to make the colors kind of blend together, you can do this by changing that value. Okay. Normal is another commonly used influence setting. Okay, which is right here, this one right there. Okay, if you click that normal, okay, it usually does a 50%, and that's part of geometry. Alright, by using a normal map, you can create fake but convincing surface irregularities without using massive amounts of geometry. To apply a normal map to an existing material, in the texture panel, create a new texture slot by pressing the this icon, which is the plus icon right here. Okay, so when you do that, okay, there we go. Okay, well, we gotta put one in here. Oh, I'm not all the way up. I'm sorry. Okay, well, you go to the next one and you create a new one. Okay. So now you got the new texture. Set it to image or movie, which you come over here to image. Since we got the image or movie, and load your texture map in. So you would go to open and you would load your texture map in from your hard drive, or if you've already loaded it, it would be in there. Okay. Enable the normal map option under the image sampling panel. So in other words, you would come down here, you would uncheck color, and then you would hit normal. Okay. Disable texture influence on material color by unchecking the color under the influence panel. We just did that. You uncheck that. You don't want to run normal and the color at the same time because you can wind up with a lot of problems. Okay, enable the texture influence on the material normal by checking the normal under the influence panel. Move the slider to adjust the strength of the effect. So if you wanted 100%, you bring it all the way up to 5. If you want it, no percent, it'd be -5. Okay, most of the time they just put it at 1. Okay, which is 1/5. Okay. So what that does, and I'm going to switch back over to here real quick. Switch back over. Let's see, here we go. And what it'll do is your model looks like this, and with a texture on it, looks like this. Okay. It gives it the illusion that that is, all geometry, but it's not. It actually looks like this. If you lost a texture, you would lose that. Okay. Just to show you about that. Okay, so normal map and height maps. Where are we sitting? Yeah, I'm right at about 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and halt it there. Normal maps and height maps is what we'll go do next week. We'll start off at page 24. Okay, so if you're following along, you're going to end on page 24, which is normal maps and height maps. And I'll switch over here so you can see. Okay, so right here we are. And that's the page number we're on, which is 24. Okay. So let me switch out of those. Okay, so again, page 24, normal maps and height maps. Those are really intensive stuff. You want to be able to do height maps, normal maps, and stuff like that for your projects, because you don't want just a bland project, and you don't want to try to do all the geometry, because I've tried doing that on the one of my OOPS project, the courthouse. Yeah, I got carried away and did this beautiful design on the column tops, and yeah, it kind of dragged because I think there were 6 of them. So keep in mind that, you know, whenever you're doing something, you can actually just get the idea of it, and then you can put normal maps on it and make it even better. Okay, so normal maps and height maps. So until next week.